Great, and thanks. I would say the first thing I want to do is make sure what is there is legal, and some of that you can do before you even leave the house, or leave to go see that house. And that's to say, like, is it meeting all the covenants of the HOA if there is one? Is there any zoning rules that they broke for an addition, whatever it may be? So that'd be the first thing, because that would be pretty bad. An example that I see the most common is someone taking a porch and enclosing it, and they never got the permits. So if it's conditioned space, there's a lot of rules that go into that, and you can't count that as conditioned space. Well, in some ways you can, some ways you can't. A bank might look at differently as insurance, might look differently for, an appraiser. They're not going to maybe look into all that as much as the others will, and it definitely does impact the value if it found out that it was done improperly or illegal, because you might have to tear it down if the city did not approve it. Okay. Same would be the basements. That's another one I'd be very careful with because those, if not done correctly, are prone to leak, and now you have a big mess you got to clean up. Uh, Next would be foundation. So everything's built on the foundation. It's typically what you'd see on the outside lower portion. Sometimes it's brick, sometimes it's cinder block, but what I'm looking there is for cracks. Even if there's covering like a veneer, you can still usually find cracks if they're significant enough. And then you'd see a lot more detail if you're doing an actual inspection and you crawl into the crawl space. But if it's on slab, you can walk through the house and you can sometimes see if the floor is separating. There's ways you can do. Also, the foundation, if it's moving, your walls are going to move with it, and you might see cracks on your walls or the trim, or the doors might drag, or that those are areas that are more evident of structurally something's moving.
Uh, I kind of cracks are concerning and what cracks are, just normal.
So that's hard to say without, in general, because it's a little bit of an art to it and understanding the soil structure and how where things are bearing, as in like where the weight's being transferred. But if it's a measurable crack, I would say 1/8 of an inch, I would start being concerned. If there are if a whole corner of a brick is cracked like steps, so if you have your corner here of your house and it goes all the way down, like that one would be, hey, there's some significant movement here. Also, if you're in a basement or something that has a large wall, you can have hydrostatic pressure can cause a crack to go all the way across, and then if you look from the side, you'll have the blocks actually separate, so they're dislodged. That could be very bad. But typically, what I see is cracks are for when the concrete dries, it has to crack, and or it doesn't have to, but they're very minor, and it's not a big deal. Some of the other cracks are on stone veneer or brick veneer, where it could be a lintel, which is a piece of steel that bears the weight above it. Sometimes they rust, and that just the rust and the slight amount of swelling can make it crack. So for that, it's like not a big deal. You just have to repair the mortar and paint that piece of steel so it doesn't do anymore.
I think I can't remember how many times that I look at a crack. I can't tell whether it's problematic or not. So I take a photo or video and send to you or other
Sure.
inspectors, right? So I think that's I mean a lot of times the buyers or the buyer agent have to admit that they don't. I mean they can only tell. I mean the very simple. Um, things, but for anything that's, questionable, they have to, um, get professional help.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And I'm always going to suggest that if you're concerned.
yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah. So the next one would be framing. It kind of goes along with foundation. So the framing, a lot of it's going to be concealed because you're going to have your sheetrock, or what they call drywall, on the walls and the ceiling. Your floor is going to have flooring. And then the only way to really see the framing is in your attic or crawl space. So sometimes we're limited on a walkthrough where if the attic is like a little scuttle, sometimes the seller won't be happy about you going up there. And you can't really, if there's not a walk board, then it's not wise to walk across insulation that you
Oh yeah,
can't see your
definitely.
footing. So yeah, so you really the amount of framing that you can inspect is limited, but for a newer house like that, hopefully there's enough access that you can get a good picture of the condition of those things. And then if there is an issue, helping identify what's causing it, and then as a general contractor, I could say, well, if that's the cause, this is the repair, and then I give it an idea of the cost. So it kind of all plays along. Um, so framing that if we can move on from there, would be what I call the trades. So your plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. Um, let's say the house was built in 2010, so everything's 15 years old. Well, your plumbing is probably going to be fine. It's probably going to be PEX or copper, and copper is known to last 25, sometimes 50 years. PEX, we don't even know how long it lasts. It hasn't been around that long. So far, it's doing great. Electrical, I think everything's going to be pretty much up to date. All the new boxes now have arc fault, so they're very expensive, but the other stuff is still safe and completely usable. I would look at the exterior boxes. Sometimes if they're not weatherproof, there can be rust and some issues there. But for the most part, I wouldn't have too many concerns about electrical. But HVAC, all right, 15 years old, you want to look at that one. A package unit is a unit that is like air conditioning and heat all in one outside. Those are known to last a little bit a shorter lifespan because they're exposed to elements. So I would really look at that. Um, but yeah, you're those are the things that are going to be the most expensive. But a newer house, hopefully, they're in good condition just by maintaining them. Moving on, I would say the next would be your floor plan. So this is whatever's there. If you're comfortable with that, that's great news. But sometimes, uh, especially like maybe in the 90s where the the floor plan was way different than they are today. Now people want open concept, or at least they want a better flow through the house. So if you wanted to move walls and you had a plan in mind, that's where I really want to say, like, whoever's buying this, what's their plan? And because moving a wall or opening a wall might not be as simple as you think, because what's hidden behind that wall could be plumbing vents, could be you might have all your electrical going through there. So I would really focus then on like what's the plan, and then to move on past that is everything else. So all the little things that can add up to a lot, all the pennies that equal dollars, if that makes sense. So you got your kitchen and bathroom are usually most expensive things to update. And then you do your shingles, your siding, you're looking at trees and landscaping. Is there any big trees that are really difficult to take down? Because those I've gotten quotes of $4,000 to remove a tree, and that's a good quote. So then it would be like parking, is your driveway, is there any repairs needed there? And then also often overlooked are your windows and doors. Go test, make sure they all open, the seals aren't cracked. So you try to, at 15 years old, 20 years old, there's a good chance that some of those windows might need to be replaced, especially if they're wood.